Also guten Morgen an alle da im Saal. Herzlich willkommen. Thank you very much for all attendees of this sales update for Palo Alto Networks with the topic Evil-ution of Ransomware and optimization of operations. Merci beaucoup pour votre attendance. Ce sont mes seuls français mots. Merci beaucoup que je vous attendais en ligne. Merci beaucoup. Today, we have different topics for you prepared. The first topic is improve security posture and prevent network disruptions. That is presented from Leonard Gross and Michael Peter. And afterwards, John Harrison just arrived from Amsterdam, came here to Switzerland. Thank you very much, John. Will show the evolution and evil-ution of the ransomware and how to mitigate them successful. After a short coffee break, we will learn how we can attract new customers with the tools we have in the firewall platform. And last but not least, we have some news, information about promotions and incentive update. If there are any questions in between, please write it in the question and answer panel. We try to answer it during the sessions or maybe afterwards. For the people who are attending here local, we have good weather here. You are invited. We go to a nice place for a lunch. For the other, I wish already now, enjoy your meal wherever you are. Thank you very much for your attendance. And thank you. I hand over to Michael.
Thank you. Good morning, miteinander. Hello, everyone here in the small and online. Okay, so mic should be on now, I guess. Okay, so thank you for coming online or on site. My topic is AI Ops for next generation firewall. My name is Michael Peter. I'm working at BOLL for several years now as a system engineer in the engineering team, doing post and pre-sales, mostly technical. With me together is Leonard Gross. Just wait for the people online and here's camera. Okay. Want to introduce you for a second?
Yeah, what do I need to be? Yeah, my name is Leonard Gross. I'm the channel systems engineer for Palo Alto Networks in the Alps region. And I will do afterwards the live demo of AI Ops.
Yes. I'm glad you're here. Thank you. Myself, I'm only doing a presentation. Leo will do the live part. Questions can be asked now online in the Q&A, and we will take care of the question. Thank you. See you later. So first, before starting my presentations, I want to do a short poll. Online people, just raise your hand if you can. With the raise your hand icon here in the room. Who already knows AI Ops, the functionality of AI Ops? Hands up. Okay. More than half of the people. Maybe Marcus, can you, or Peter, can you check online if there are any hands up in the online session? Rolf, okay, there are also a few hands. Then my next question is, who already uses AI Ops in production? Hands up. Okay, half. Okay, so I guess most of you know the functionality, but doesn't use it. So let's check how we can change that. I asked me some questions to make the presentation a bit more interactive. Maybe that's the same question you are asking. What is AI Ops for next generation firewall? AI Ops is a cloud delivered application. As you can see here, it's in the cloud stack of Palo Alto Networks. It's in the hub, accessible in the hub platform. And it's a functionality, a feature who uses data from next generation firewalls, uses machine learning power to get insights to proactively improve security posture. So it measures, it takes data, analyzes it with machine learning power, and you can do different things out of it. You can get recommendations, how to get best practices, how to how to improve your security posture. You get recommendations, which are also easy to deploy. You will see that later. Another thing, what can be done, another main part is the prediction feature. The AIOps functionality can analyze firewall data, health and performance data, and you can and it can predict disruption. So it analyzes the logs, and we can see also capacity disruptions in the near future if the box will run out of memory, and we will see that later in use cases as well. And the third thing, big thing which you can do is you can get insights. It's different platform, different dashboards, different reports, how your security works, how your platforms work. So then ask me on what data is AIOps based on. So it's based on telemetry data collected from the next generation firewalls or from Panorama. The onboarding process, how to enable that and how to enable AIOps is pretty simple. So I want to go through the enablement so that you can test it as well in your instances, because you saw most of you know the functionality but don't use it. So it's really simple to turn on AIOps and use it. First thing is you go to the device setup, telemetry on your firewall or on Panorama, and you need to enable the telemetry data. Telemetry data will be sent into the telemetry region. We will see that later. Now, since a few months, we have a data repository in Switzerland. Please remind that Pan OS 10.0 and plus is needed so that you can enable device telemetry, and you will get the presentation afterwards. Here I mentioned, or I linked the documentation and also the enabled device telemetry documentation. It's pretty well documented in the docs repository of Palo Alto. Next step, after enabling telemetry data, you want probably check which data are sent to Palo Alto, because you have probably privacy data concerns. You can check that in two steps. You can either say which data will be sent. You can differentiate between the threat prevention, device health, performance data, and product usage data. And you can also generate a telemetry file, which contains the log data which will be sent. You can open that. It's a zip file, and it contains all the data. Here is just a short output. You can see it runs the show clock command, it runs the show system info, and this data will be sent to the cloud. You can check each log file in the telemetry file, which you can download. There is also privacy data sheet downloadable here, which contains all the in detail which data will be collected and on how they will be used, the data. Afterwards, you go to the hub, sign in to apps.paloaltonetworks.com. You know that probably. Sign in, switch to the customer view. It has now, since few versions, a toggle where you have to change between customer and tenant view. And then it's pretty simple, activate the AIOps for next generation free application. After enabling it, you can choose on which customer account will be activated. As I mentioned before, we have now region Switzerland, which can be chosen. And if you have already, you can choose your Cortex data lake. Otherwise, it will create one just for the AIOps functionality. After activating, you can see has been completed the status. It's activated. You can see in which region, has no contract and no expiration date. Why? You can see, probably saw it already, there's a free version. And then you can go switch to the tenant view and go to your next generation for free AIOps application, and it will open. That's pretty simple. Afterwards, you can assign your devices, because you can say which device will report in which AIOps tenant. Go therefore to the Common Services Device Association and associate your devices to this tenant, and then they will show up with logs in the AIOps tenant. It's really pretty simple, few steps needed. So I mentioned the free version. That's really for free, no license required. You can just go to your hub and activate it. Also, a new feature is that you can use use VM series firewall as well, not just only hardware in the free version. And there is also a paid or called premium version. The premium version needs to be activated, needs a license. But the good thing is you can test it for 90 days for free as well. So you can see which are the differences between the premium paid version and the free version. Also here in the presentation afterwards, you can click on the links and find the right documentation how to do that. Here is an overview of the free versus paid AIOps version. You can see all free versions with a white background, and you can see here the premium features with the BOLL black background. You can see more than 50% of the features are for free. Only some prediction features which need also power, calculation power, are paid. Here for prediction features, plan software version upgrades, misconfigurations, as you can see, but most of the features are for free and you can test them. There are also some integrations for security services, as you can see here. If you have the corresponding security services, like DNS security or wildfire, AIOps already contains the dashboards for the security services, and you need only one place to check your reports, your dashboards, also for wildfire and DNS security. New, you can see there are new features. There is a list with all features, and new means new in the latest AIOps versions. I linked here the release notes because AIOps is, of course, because it's cloud service updated automatically. If you want to check which are the features, yeah, Rolf, just a second. You can check here which are the new features, what has been changed or added. Yeah, Rolf.
There is a question. There is a question. There is a question from a remote attendee. Are there any logs beside the telemetry data required and analyzed? And I think the answer is yes. You can start with telemetry, but you can send enhanced data logs, enhanced firewall logs to the data lake, which are then analyzed as well to get best practice information regarding how your policy looks like and these kind of things, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. So if you want to check, you can maybe click on it to show you. Just a second. Here are the release notes for the AIOps, and you can see what's new in AIOps for next generation, and you can see which features had been added lately, as you can see here, for example. Here in January this year, Switzerland as a region has been added, and you can check the release notes, what has been added, what's new. Really simple thing. So what are now the benefits? You're asking maybe. You have now a platform where you can see things. What are the real benefits for you and your customers in the production environment? There are three main things I mentioned before. The first one is you can strengthen your security posters. There are features which look at your security. For example, you're asking you, I need to be sure that I'm compliant, or can someone warn me when there has been something configured wrong, or I wish to monitor my security posture at all the time. How is that possible? That's probably me, Mike. and I'm asking you these questions. And AIOps answer these questions. It sends an alert when there is a configuration change, which may be causing a security posture, a compromise to the security posture, makes you vulnerable. The machine learning module checks logs, checks the configuration, and can send you an alert here, critical alert to the mic, and say, please take care, there is an issue with one of the rules. And it has also a command how to solve, a step-by-step recommendation how to solve that issue. It's really simple to solve issues which appear in your configuration. Let's jump to a security use case, for example, here that you may be easier to understand. Mike has created a new URL filtering profile, easy, but has forgotten to enable the credential theft detection feature. It's a credential theft feature looks at when you go to a website, if you send your login data, your enterprise login data using the user ID feature, and if you see if that's a phishing website, your credential will be stolen and the hacker uses your credentials to access a legal application. So Mike forgot to add that feature. And with AIOps checks the configuration and it says, okay, there is a new URL filtering profile, but the feature has been forgotten to be activated. So AIOps sends an alert and says, there is the credential phishing mode not configured correctly for this new web filter URL. Please use that feature. Please apply the remediation steps and you will be secure. That's one of many use cases you can use. Another one is you are asking you probably, am I following best practices? Is my firewall really configured for best practices? And there is also in the security posture use cases a functionality. It's the AIOps tracks adoption of security features and the firewall features and gives you an overview, a comparison if you are following best practices for each of the security features. If not, it gives you recommendations that how you can get closer to the best practices proposed by Palo Alto and the industry standards. Here's the list of the security posture features AIOps can do. It analyzes a lot of logging data. If you're logging, if you are using malware defenses, if you are using applications, not just ports and services, it looks at your configuration. It has boundary defense. It looks if you encrypt data needed, if there is account logging behavior deviation and so on. It looks at many of your security posture points and can alert you if there are differences or are problems. The second step is not security posture, but it's performance and health data of your environment. Probably, how can you make sure boxes are always available and have no disruption? If you have any issues, what are the root causes? Why did no one warn me when there are disruptions or things go wrong? That's questions you are probably asking you today, and AIOps can help you as well in this part. You get alerts when there are hardware, software issues, processes, memory depletion, high processing activity on different services. AIOps monitors different services and can give you also here step-by-step recommendation how to solve these issues. Also, when you have problems, disruptions, there is a simple one-click button which opens a support ticket so that Palo Alto support can take care of the issue, can give you also recommendations how to solve this. Let's also jump here in a use case, for example. There are more, because of company expansion, there are new apps or new users. You get more traffic and the network gets slow and affects the business. So Mike is under pressure, needs to have a solution. How can he solve that? Also with using AIOps. AIOps monitors. Here is an example of the data plane CPU utilization. And it can also do a forecast for a week because of machine learning and prediction models. You can say there may be an issue in the next 7 days, and you can proactively change something, check what you can do here in this case. Also here, the list of the monitoring data AIOps measures. It looks for hardware issues, power supply, software issues, if you need to update end of life information, HA issues, one sync is out of sync, for example, or here, all the resources, you can check yourself, memory, latency issues, high disk space usage. And for every of these issues, it can alert you and you can do the recommendation steps. And the third thing is the security posture or the insights. Maybe you're asking, well, I'm really compliant. Can you guide me how to improve my security posture? What is, how can I monitor my security posture all the time? And that's also the third part, which AIOps can help you. It has different reports and dashboard possibilities to check your security, actually what's going on. Let's jump to the use case here. Here, for example, is an oversight, an overview of your threat insights. You can check by feature, malware. There are blocked threats, but also allow threats, and you have to jump, or you can click right into this and check if you have to change something. If probably a policy is not okay, or yeah, you can jump into each of the security features to get more insights. Yeah, Andre. Yeah, I'll repeat the question. Andre asked if there are any APIs available for monitoring or to. What is your intention to get the data out of the AIOps?
Que ce même jour, j'ai parlé avec elle de ça. C'est ça la chose qui me.
Daniele, can you please mute yourself?
Moi, je me demande si c'est pas elle. Hein.
Oui, mais c'est égal si c'est elle. Je me fâche quand même.
Oui, bien sûr.
Mauvaise instruction, connasse. Oui, Edmond.
George break.
Oui, je vais d'arriver, j'étais au téléphone avec.
Du Frage gestellt hast, André. It's a Französisch Antwort. Okay. So Andre's question was if there are any APIs for getting data out of. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
The variables from somewhere, and they are supporting such for APIs.
Yeah. Can you help if there is an API? I'm not sure. You can attach, for example, ServiceNow with the premium version, but if there is an API, we have to check that.
Yeah, currently I'm not aware that we do like an API integration to this. So from, I'm currently not aware. Like certain data you can extract, but not everything.
Yeah, I don't believe we set one up either because again, all the data is already coming from the firewall and the API. It's using the intelligence part.
There was not audible.
So we'll get back to you on whether there's an API or not, but one of the things is all the data is already there in the firewall, so it's already coming into AIOps. So I'm not sure we've set up the API yet to dump into something else, because this is our kind of special analysis of all the data and all the logs combined together.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions right now? So because that's all from my part, and I want to hand over to Leo, who can give you party. Yeah.
I wish.
So thank you, and let's see what we can see in the live demo now.
So maybe in addition to the API question, what I heard a lot from partners, or müssen wir was ich schalte, oder?
Nein, schon.
Okay. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah, maybe to add to the API question, what could make sense for a partner perspective, if partner may are doing a managed service for customers, where I'm currently still clarifying with PM, like to get a unified portal, for example, from a lot of customers. This is currently not the case, but I'm currently also talking with PM and trying to get an answer if this is on roadmap or not, because this would make perfect sense for your use cases. Hey, I got everything centralized from different customers and see this in the portal. So what I did here now in the live demo, so I will do first the premium version and then jump into the free version. I just logged in. We got some data in here. It's still a demo environment, so sometimes some data is still missing. So just wanted to give a heads up. And yeah, if you got questions, just let me know. When we log in, we get a small overview. We see which tenant we're in. When it says premium, we see the device, health, like devices, health in general, health alerts, and security alerts. When we look into this, it will prioritize for customers or partners that manage the devices, which is the most important to look into. So we'll give you a prioritization of the alerts, what are more business critical. So I will just go into the health alert, for example, and open maybe this one and this one. So if we look into those alerts, we see directly what could be like. We see high processing activity, so the box is under heavy load, and we already see directly recommendations for what could cause this with troubleshooting guides, for example, to go deeper into this. So we see also why this is hitting an event and making an alert, because we see a threshold is soon to be reached, and this is like the prediction of how and when we will hit this threshold that we get a warning of the firewall. What's good, because all of a sudden you're like having like a customer is growing. You got a lot of things to do and you forget to upgrade the firewall, or if it's a VM series, put additional CPU cores, memory, or that kind of stuff. So you're then able to do like a maintenance window and upgrade the boxes or the VMs so that the firewall got more resources. If we go into the other alert, we see also, so this is now a different firewall. We get again the recommendations, but also we get the problem causes. So we see also high processing and resource limits. When we see, okay, this could be probably causes because those processes are hitting critical thresholds. So we see it's either the syslog, if we do a lot of syslog streaming, we see something from the Ethernet interface, and also for RTCP application rate. So this adds up, and then this creates also the alert. And this is like on a short overview what's on the firewall dashboard and the alerts. If we go into monitor, we get a kind of different view where we can break down and go into certain devices, for example, and see, okay, what all my 3260, have they got something, and get an overview of this. We see here, okay, the power supply had a failure. Next one would be the posture. We also get, again, a small overview. How do the services look? How does the feature application or feature adoption, if we go into adoption summary, we see this again. How are the features used? And also, we get an on-the-fly best practice assessment. So with the best practice assessment, it used to be that you upload the config file, and then it would say, give you an Excel file in our support portal. Hey, it looks this and like this. You need to adjust this and this config. You need to configure it, but it wasn't really granular. So now you can go into AI Ops and adjust all those settings, because usually the security administrators or the partners know what's going on in this customer environment, so they can adjust the best practice assessment, say, okay, this is configured as the best practice, and that adoption looks then completely differently. This is the like on-demand BPA, where we got again a report like you know it, and then we also can do an upload here. One feature, and this is also maybe the question earlier, if we look at the policy optimizer, policy analyzer here on the firewall, it's called policy optimizer. We also brought this feature up from the firewall to the AI Ops. So we don't need any third-party tools. If it's just a Palo Alto environment, we can use to look at the policies directly on the firewall. Yeah. So if we go, what I wanted to show again was the security advisory summary. Here we get, when we look at the firewalls, we see, okay, we got those CVEs, and then we can also generate upgrade recommendations. So at one point, you're looking at your firewall environment, you see, okay, we got these CVEs in the network that may be older, and then it will say, hey, please upgrade to those versions of those firewalls, for example. One highlight I want to show is, because it was kind of hidden all the time, we used to have, if we look at Wildfire DNS security, we used to have own dashboards for this. So if you got the DNS security subscription on the firewall, you would also get access to autofocus in the dashboard in autofocus at the time. Autofocus has been since then be canceled, or like it doesn't exist anymore. So this dashboard was missing for some time, and now we brought it back in AI Ops. And yeah, here is it now again. And this is the one I wanted to highlight, the software upgrade recommendation. So if we look onto our firewalls, it will tell you what the upgrade recommendation is. So I just chose one, and we'll give you two options. So either go with the same PAN-OS. If we click here, it will also show you what kind of new features we'll expect when if you go to 10.1, for example. This firewall must be on 10 something. We'll show you what kind of different features are there with the same firewall, like on the current version for those selected group of firewalls. What are changed behaviors in the firewall? So what's now working differently? Are there any known PAN-OS vulnerabilities, or are there any known issues in this software version? The upgrade option 2 looks the same. So you can plan ahead your firewall migration to new software versions. Any questions? Then I would jump into the free version, just to show how it looks and what's kind of different. So we see here directly, this is the free version. It says free. What's important, if you want to test AI Ops under the customer support portal, you can test it for 90 days, like the premium version. After this, it will revert to the free version. So look and feel is the same. It will just give you, if you're using a premium feature, it will give you this plus and say, hey, this is a premium feature. So like it's all in the new games and everything. Or if you go to websites, want to look at the news article, it will say, hey, you need to have the premium version for this special news article. It's the kind of the same way. But then you still got the availability, the possibility to get this feature. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Question regarding NFR kit. Are there any plans that we get AI ops into an NFR bundle? I mean, it's a great feature, right? And just learned that you cannot enable the 90 days free trial of the premium version with an NFR unit. So I think it would be great if there are plans maybe to include AI ops in the NFR bundle.
Yeah,
are you aware of?
I'm currently not aware. I would need to ask PM for this.
Already was, so that's good feedback.
Okay.
Take that and,
yeah.
And again, we want to enable you and ensuring that's part of it, so you can get your hands around it. Great feedback.
Thank you.
Yeah, so maybe one point of AI ops that's still interesting that when I was discussing yesterday with a partner that came up, it's hostable in Switzerland. So this is good with the data lake and everything and telemetry data. But if you got international customers, it always depends where do we want to be the data, where should the data be hosted. If it's not present in a region yet, the automatic instance will be the US, just that you're aware. So it could be that the data lake is available in or like in a certain region. But if it's, for example, I just make something up, if it's Singapore, we got a region in Singapore, it's available in Singapore, but if it wouldn't be available, the default region would be the US, just that you're aware of this. Great. This is like on my SE side, I would say, test it, play with the trial, and if you got any questions, you come back to.
Here, I'll add in a couple things because I love this product. So, how many of you have done a best practice assessment with your customers? Right? How many of you have done an AI ops trial with every one of your customers? Okay, so this is right. So the BPA has gone coming up on end of support, and I think one of the, can you hear me? Okay, good. And I think one of the ways that I look at it is kind of, you know, as you were talking about the BPA, this was the old clunky analog way of implementing this, right? You took the tech support file, you uploaded it, and it kind of gave you some generic recommendations. Is it green, yellow, or red? You didn't really do much from there. One of the things that I love on here is when you're looking at the security policy, one, you're going to see instantly where you're at in the best practices. So that way you can tweak and change things and really quickly and see what the outcome is. The other thing that I absolutely love, there's two other things I love, is when you're showing the blocked versus allowed. These are the critical security gaps. Do you have one you can show? Where's the either
premium version?
Yeah, go back to premium. So one of the things that you're looking at is why would you either alert or allow malware? So maybe you do have a security rule that's not right, but you're using the, you know, let's call it, you're using vulnerability protection, but you're only blocking critical. Well, what would happen if I made a change and now blocked medium, high, and critical? I can see immediately how many more blocks I get versus how many alerts, or God help us, allow. So I think from a implementation perspective, it allows you to fine tune and change things so much quicker. And for you as partners to add value back to the customer to see, instead of, okay, yeah, we'll run this in another quarter, or maybe we run a best practice assessment once a year. It's like from a service offering, I think it's pretty exciting to go. So where's the, yeah, oh, so mouse, monitor, no, activity. Yeah, threat insights. Yeah. So, you know, I've got a rule that says 72 allowed. Why would I want malware at all to be allowed? And the same when I start getting into URL filtering and DNS security, I really want to be able to dig into that. our rule base inside our customers can be more and more confusing. So this allows you to go straight in there and go, oh, here's where I can make that change. The other thing that I see all the time, shadow rules. This is the thing that totally screws up customers. And there's one of the things that says, I see 10 shadow rules. Would you like to address these? And that's a beautiful thing, because if you tie it back to what I'm going to talk about, misconfigurations and security gaps, the customers think they're protected. I created this rule, but it's actually a shadow rule and it's not really working. So think of those two things. Improving this right here. It's like, I love advanced URL filtering, but there should be no allow rule for anything in URL filtering. It should be block, block, block as much as possible, or alerting on all things. So fine tuning the policies. That's all I wanted to add.
Perfect.
Cool stuff.
Thank you very much, John.
Anytime.
And now we need to attach your laptop, I think.
Oh yeah. Are you all done?
Yep.
Do I need to log into the Zoom, or is it
No, it's
magical? Wow, I like it. That's all right. Shall we get started? Cool. All right, I will go ahead and introduce myself. Just if everyone doesn't know me, thank you so much for having me. So I'm John Harrison. I've been at Palo Alto Networks coming up on 10 years. I came from the product management side where I built many of the threat features. So I built threat prevention, I built external dynamic lists, I actually built the telemetry that went into AIOps. And so all the time I've been thinking about the capabilities and protecting our customers. I ran part of Unit 42 that built all the threat capabilities. And I've been now based in Amsterdam for 4 years, being closer to you, being closer to customers, really driving all things I own, NetSec, CDSS, SASE, otherwise known as Strata, things like that. So rather than talk about all the CDSS subscriptions, I thought the better way to really cover this is really talk about ransomware attacks and how we mitigate those threats with the network security platform. So we're going to kind of back into it and kind of go from there. Because I think this is one of the ways that, again, the better you all know what our customers are up against, and again, many of you see this every single day, the better you can help customers to build the right proactive defenses in place. So that's how I'm going to approach this. And feel free to ask questions along the way. It's going to be a little bit fast-paced. But again, one of the key things that I'm always really cognizant of is this isn't about scaring customers. This is about empowering them with the latest tactics, techniques, and procedures, TTPs, so that the customers can build the right defenses and prevention in place. You'll know two things. One of my favorite words is prevention, prevention, prevention. And so each time I'm going to highlight where we can prevent, because we want to have as many attempts to prevent the attack as possible and not the tick the box, yeah, I have one of those. Cool? So I think one of the key things is ransomware attacks. It's pretty evident. Every single day, in every single country, in every single industry around the world, our customers are continuing to be impacted by ransomware attacks. This is absolutely one of the most devastating attacks that can potentially impact an organization. And I don't care what you have in place. I think this is one of the things that we all have to continue to make sure we raise the bar and do this. So last week, when I was talking about this, it's that single user working from home, the single workload in the public cloud, or a single workload in the data center is all it takes for the adversary to get in. And it may be Friday night at midnight, and all of a sudden your organization is entirely compromised. I took a look at some of the most recent attacks. So last week I was doing a talk. This was one day's list of companies that were impacted by ransomware attacks. It's still going. It's still going. Yeah. Now, again, this may have been another database dump that was in there. Unfortunately, while I was also presenting, I was doing a keynote over in Austria. I had one of the customers come up to me and say, could you give me a little bit more information about that? My accounting firm was on the list. But again, this was one day's aspect of attacks. The adversaries do, unfortunately, a really good job at touting the fact that they may be in an organization. You know, something like this shows up on the customer screen, and by then, it's far too late. And the adversaries are using tactics to put pressure on your customers. A countdown clock starts going. All of a sudden, this is the organization, this is the data that's being leaked, and this is when they're going to start releasing it. So they're putting pressure on you, on your customer, to act quickly. I mean, it's really scare tactics, and this is really, a challenging time. I think this is one of the things that each and every adversary group has different tactics, but they're starting to leak the data to let people know, yes, we're really in this organization. But I think what I like to think of, instead of, the ransomware attack, ransom was $1 million or $5 million or $500,000. Think about your customer's business. It absolutely comes to a grinding halt. Your customers can't locate their goods on the manufacturing floor. They can't pay their employees. They can't communicate internally. Their Slack channels are entirely compromised. They can't accept payments for their goods. The government of Costa Rica was down for about 3 or 4 months when it was impacted by a ransomware attack. So this is why I'm so passionate, because I'm looking at these every single day and seeing more and more companies. I was looking at one of the other groups that tracks, and this year is continuing to get even worse. It's not getting better. I interviewed the former CEO of a healthcare company whose organization was brought down. They couldn't provide healthcare services to the entire region for an entire month. So it impacted the community, not just their organization, and underlined former CEO of that organization. This is a pretty critical thing. So this is why I'm so passionate. We can't keep doing things the same old way. It's every single one of us in this room. It's every single one of us online. It's our customers. It's Palo Alto Networks. And I'm never going to go say, oh, buy Palo Alto Networks and you're magically protected. And this is exactly where leveraging AI ops and those capabilities to ensure that our customers are leveraging the crap out of what they've already purchased. I want to make sure every single security gap is really as closed as they possibly can. I want to make sure we're raising the bar and have multiple attempts to stop the attack at each stage of the attack lifecycle. So that's what I'm going to walk through here. So what I want to do is I'm going to walk you through the stages of a ransomware attack. And I'm going to go through and hopefully we'll make it a little interactive. I'm going to ask some questions. So
First, I'm going to cover, I spend a lot of time with our incident responders, and I always get questions. So how come companies are being impacted by ransomware attack? These are not the magical, the magical 10 reasons. There's probably more than this. We had many conversations over late night beers going, oh, what do we put on there? It's like how specific, how broad. So let me give you the start. The first is, the simple one, complex networks with security gaps. When I look at 50, 60, 70 security solutions, when we're supposed to create a nice simple policy between users and applications, how many different management consoles do I have to configure a policy for between the users and applications? How many different sensors do I need to deploy? How many different logging infrastructures do I need? It gets more and more complex every single day. Things like, I'll ask a simple question. Do you know every single application in use inside your organization? I get a lot of course I do. It's like, okay, no, I really don't. And how many of you are doing SSL TLS decryption? No, we're not. That's kind of hard. Or the Works Council, I can't do it because of the Works Council. Things like, do you know every IoT device in your entire network? Do you have risky applications, URLs, domains, or IPs? I'm going to talk a little bit more about this in your organization. This is the one that I love. How many of your customers have flat networks? If I'm in, thank you, I'm in the entire network. This is the thing that just absolutely is nuts. How many different vulnerable applications or IoT devices are out there? Any of your customers still using port-based firewall rules? Yeah, we're going to talk about that one a little bit. That's the interesting one. Outdated, old school endpoint technology. I'm like, come on, folks, this is 2023. It's time to raise the bar in using a modern EDR technology. This is an interesting one. Not acting on the logs. What does that mean? Every single one of these ransomware attacks, you'll hear 2, 3, 4 weeks, 4 months after the fact. Here's how they got in, here's how they moved laterally, and here's how they got out. All the logs were exactly there showing, and multiple security products were going off in alarm bells. No one actually did anything with the data. So I'm going to talk a little bit about doing something with that. Phishing prevention, relying only on email security. I'm going to dig into this one a little bit. And, the reality is 100% of breaches happen on allowed activity. So the adversary got in somehow, and it's usually, what was the guy on the AI ops? Was it Mark? Mark or Bob? Bill? Mark? What's Mike? It's always Mike's and accounts payable clicked on that link to install the malware, but it's something else. And one of the things I love still is focusing around end user education, because really what we're instructing users on has really changed. And this is one of the things that I still am like, if I can help one user to not click on that link, then we've really changed the game. This is a cool end user education done by a university professor in North Carolina. They had these posters up all over the place. I'm like, cool, finally someone's done a different approach to end user education. May not pass the HR department, but anyway. So let's dig into the anatomy of a ransomware attack. So this is the Conti attack lifecycle. And again, this is pretty generic. So initial access, the adversary gets in somewhere, exploits a vulnerability in this case, another sonic wall vulnerability, establishes foothold, creates command and control to receive additional instructions, what to do later, Cobalt Strike, escalation, where they're grabbing the credentials out of memory and escalating privilege, reconnaissance. Oftentimes the adversary doesn't even know whose company they've landed on or where they're at. So that's when they're getting out the flashlight or the torch, starting to look around. What do I have access to? Where can I go? From there, maybe they'll use lateral movement techniques. We'll talk about that. Establishing persistence. And I love this. It's usually when 2 terabytes worth of data leaves the organization that all of a sudden everyone's like, we have a ransomware attack. Okay, that's not the time to detect. I think, and I'm optimistic, every single one of these stages, you want multiple attempts to prevent, and detect and respond with the attack lifecycle. This is one of the interesting things that's also changed is rather than going through the hassle of just encrypting all the things and encryption keys, things like that, they're just focusing on, I'm just going to steal your data and start leaking it to the press or leaking it to the world and things like that. Your credit cards, your data that you don't want out there, things like that. So this is an interesting one. Harassment's another thing. I keep hearing over and over and over that, one of the things the adversary will do, if your IT teams are using Slack to communicate, we're under an attack, what should we do? The adversary is sitting there looking at the same channel going, I'm watching exactly what you're doing and harassing the organization back, or even taking over the video cameras in the data center and seeing exactly what's going on as they're unplugging, harassing the people responding to the attack and things like that. So a really, really awful situation on top of that with kind of bad shit on top of this really can make this. So this is one of the things I want you to think about is if all of a sudden you had 0 communication, what is your out-of-band communication path for communicating with your employees? Do you have the full list outside of your normal Slack and communications to communicate with all the known people that you need to? So this is kind of an interesting thing. What's better than a magic quadrant for ransomware as a service adversaries? I don't know why this vendor comes up with, the leaders, Black Vasta, Lockbit. Anyway, this is where ransomware gets a little too, that's a little too crazy for me. All right, so who can tell me what one of the initial access vectors for deploying ransomware is, besides Leo? And he really doesn't know. Come on, real quick. Or online? Come on. Email, yep, okay, perfect. Next. Yeah, it kind of goes with phishing, but totally agree. Yeah. Yeah. What are the top 3 ways that adversaries? Oh, sorry. Phishing was the first one. Social engineering was the second. Malicious link. That kind of to do what? Yep. To get the user. It's always the user. It's always the user's fault. Okay. You all are the defenders. You should know this so quickly right off the top of your. All right. Shall I keep going? So here are the 3. Oh, stop it. This is my favorite one. Exploiting vulnerabilities, exploiting vulnerabilities, exploiting vulnerabilities. We're going to focus on this one. Phishing and malspam attacks, social engineering kind of ties into that. Microsoft Remote Desktop. This is 2023, folks, and we're still talking about Microsoft Remote Desktop. You on the webinar? Yeah, okay, yeah, okay. Let's make sure we're focused on this. No, so I'm going to go through each one of these in detail. And how am I'm doing good on time. We're going to make this kind of good and interactive. So the top vulnerabilities, it's 20,000 vulnerabilities per year, but there's not all 20,000 that are being exploited. The first 2, right? Log4j. It's a real pain in the butt because no idea where it's deployed within an organization. That makes it really, really challenging when we had the little snippets of Log4j deployed all over the place. Felina, MSDT code execution, Microsoft patches for this didn't work the first time or the second time. It took a number of patches to really be able to get that in there. The next, I'm going to show you. These are the top ones currently being exploited by ransomware actors. Can anyone tell me what are some of the common factors other than ones in red here on this slide? What are some common patterns you see here? Exactly. The old vulnerabilities work. Why should I use a new cutting edge vulnerability? Because the front door is wide open with these old vulnerabilities. 2019, 2020, 2021. What's another trend that I see that you see?
One of gateways or firewalls.
Exactly. Do I see some gateway? And yes. Customers thought they were protected. They had some devices, not necessarily cutting edge, but they had a firewall. Tick the box. A lot of old school vulnerabilities from the gateways, things like that. I actually had to look up. Does anyone know what an IBM Aspera Fastbacks is? Think about it as like a Dropbox appliance. It's a large appliance for moving large files, things like that. There's the latest vulnerability than the last week called a Move It. That's a similar type device. So these gateways that you put in for moving large files that are out there. Paper cut, no, this is one of the few vulnerabilities. And I put in here, the ones in red are the last 60 to 90 days. These are the top vulnerabilities being exploited over and over. So does that mean you can just, only worry about these? No. So I think this is one of the things that, CISA has a known exploited vulnerabilities library that's out there. Oops, now it's 944 vulnerabilities. So it keeps getting more and more. So this at least gives you, please start with the low-hanging fruit, because those are the key ones that it's continuing to work right there. From there, once I exploit a vulnerability, what are some of the tools that I might use to move laterally or grab credential? Leo, do you know the answer to this one? There's at least some helpful icons out here. So this is, again, living off the land and using what's installed. These are some interesting ones. AnyDesk, logged me in, go to assist, Cobalt Strike, Bloodhound, PS Exec, TeamViewer. If TeamViewer is not a sanctioned application, should that be allowed in your network? Go to assist. Is go to assist a sanctioned remote access tool? So anytime you're seeing something in here, you should be asking, should that be an allowed tool inside my customer's network? Yes or no? If it's not allowed, it's not allowed. And this is where we go into port-based rules going from there. So one of the things on that list was Cobalt Strike. How many of you know what Cobalt Strike is? Okay. So Cobalt Strike, I'll give you the summary view. Cobalt Strike is a tool created for red teams or pen testing teams. So if you want to call in someone to say, test the defenses of my organization, they may use a post-compromise tool like Cobalt Strike, which exploits vulnerabilities, creates a command and control infrastructure to communicate and receive additional commands. It looks something like this. And so red teamers and pen testing teams absolutely love this because it works really, really well. It's a nice put together, all nice kit. That's when the nation state adversary said, this is a really nice tool. Why should I go create my own tool and command and control infrastructure? And they started using it. And you know what is really awesome about Cobalt Strike? Because your SOC team sit there and have absolutely no freaking clue that Cobalt Strike is in the network. Absolutely none. It looks like normal network traffic. It can look like a Microsoft update. It can look like AWS traffic. It can look like someone's watching a video on MSNBC. It looks like normal network traffic. And that's when, besides just the nation state adversaries, then everyday commodity malware guys said, really nice tool. I'm going to start using this over and over. And the one interesting thing is, as you start getting into it, signatures absolutely don't work. I started working on this problem 5, 6 years ago. And again, you can write signatures for Cobalt Strike. So here's one from Emerging Threats. Here's a nice PCRE, a super, super complex PCRE that's probably going to bring the box to its absolute knees, includes exactly what it's looking for. So here's the alert, here's the information, what it's looking for. But, you know, I grabbed from Brad Duncan, my malware traffic analysis guy. Here's the payload. And again, the cookie has a session ID with a couple underscores in here. All I need to do is add another space, another underscore, and that signature is bypassed. And this is one of the things that Cobalt Strike includes, what's called a malleable or a changeable C2 profile. It means it's changeable quite often, which means it's a real pain in the butt to be able to detect, let alone prevent. And this is exactly why we started working on this problem. And this is what keeps me up at night. Because if we take a look at everyday commodity malware, this is Brad Duncan, malware traffic analysis. Every couple of days, he writes a different mal spam included. Cobalt Strike, Cobalt Strike, Cobalt Strike, Cobalt Strike. Dark VNC sounds like another thing that shouldn't be in my customer's network. So this is one of the things that my question to you is, could Cobalt Strike be in your customer's networks? And if it was, could you prevent it? Okay. We're getting into why you're going to want some of the advanced capabilities. And exfiltration, I love this. Again, this is where a lot of adversaries like putting together things in a 7-zip file or encrypted RAR file. Bless you. Maybe they like saving bandwidth, but encrypted RAR files are very specific to certain adversaries. FTP, they're going to use Dropbox or Box or Google Drive, things like that. rclone and Mega Client are two of the big ones. So if you see rclone or Mega and Z uploads, that's usually not a good sign. So again, use each one of these things as signal to help your SOC policies and be able to put the policies in place, but also to say, these are the types of policies I'm going to start off with to say where we're going to start. So anyone sufficiently not going to sleep well after what you saw here, or is this all, you knew all this? This is old news. So again, this is not to scare you or to scare the customers. This is the basics of what they do. This is not even the cutting edge stuff. So let's get into the best practices. And this is where, you know, zero trust and ransomware to me go hand in hand. So if these two things are not top of mind priority for your customers, they should be. And how are you going to implement that? It's usually a nice, simple policy. And guess what? It starts with one of those things that you know really, really well. It starts with a true layer 7 application-based policy. And this is where, if you're still using port-based rules, I've seen 400, 500 applications running over a single port-based rule. Two things. One, that's absolutely not zero trust, and that's where the security gaps start coming in. And when we're starting to think of the policy, whether you're talking perimeter, whether you're talking a workload in the data center or workload in the public cloud, what applications are allowed in, but also what applications are allowed out, right? So if I break it down to the simplest stance, I have a web server running log4j here and a database over here. Oops, the web server running log4j was compromised with the vulnerability. The adversary gets in. Can they go anywhere from there? Can they FTP the data out? No, implicit deny. Can they use PSExec? Can they use go to assist? Can they use TeamViewer? No, no, no. Everything's implicit deny. So being able to have a policy even at a workload perspective or even at a container level, it's absolutely essential. From there, policies based around users instead of IP addresses, devices, right? video cameras, printers, things like that. It's absolutely essential to have a policy for devices, as that may be the front door, and things like SSL, TLS decryption. So, but not only every application, but also SaaS application. If you have a customer using App ID, that only gives you visibility and control of 700 to 800 SaaS applications. This is where you need the SaaS inline security or the next-gen CASB capability to have the visibility and control of all 60,000 SaaS applications. Luckily, the Palo Alto Networks network security platform really helps. And I'm going to go into each one of these. And again, each time I'm talking about these, I'm talking about hardware firewalls. I'm talking about VM series firewalls, CN series firewalls, Prisma SASE, Prisma Access. And there's other capabilities that work together. But in putting that policy together, it's devices, applications, users, data, and you get the power of the Palo Alto Networks protection. We're distributing so many of the protections out to each one of our customers through the individual subscriptions and capabilities, and I'll go into that. But as I talked about, to be able to prevent modern day threats such as Cobalt Strike, signatures don't work. Modern day web and phishing protection, that doesn't work as well. So this is where we're using deep learning, crowd scale, and it has to be inline and it has to be focused around prevention. That's one of the things that we'll talk about. So I'll show you, this is kind of, you see machine learning or deep learning, is often too kind of generic, or that's just kind of marketing buzzwords, right? Signatures can work really well. But again, in this case of an IPS signature where you have a pattern match here, I've got individual parts of the header, the host and the user agent. In this case, I'm doing a dynamic set of patterns across different capabilities. So I'm going to look at anything that is in kind of these different factors here. But with deep learning, I'm looking at millions and millions of flows and letting the machines determine, is this good traffic or is this bad traffic? It takes a lot of training analysis, and that's kind of where we're at with using deep learning. So I'm not just saying my signature is based on this. And this is where we're fundamentally taking a different approach to putting this together. So PanOS 10.2 Nebula, we introduced advanced threat prevention. And this, to me, is the absolute, one of the biggest innovations we've come at, and every single customer should have this. Being able to detect and prevent web-based Cobalt Strike, I'm not going to say it's perfect. It's significantly better than anything else we've ever come up with, and significantly better than the competition. If there's one feature why every one of your customers should be on PanOS 10.2 if you can, it's this right here. This is absolute cutting edge innovation where we've solved a really, really, really hard problem. Signatures don't work. So we've got a bunch of different classifiers. So we're focused on post-infection tools, such as we have additional protection for Empire and Brute Ratel C4, other post-infection tools. We're also looking at encrypted traffic. If you have customers or SOC teams that say, I'm looking for detection using JA3, this is a kind of public domain capability looking at aspects of encrypted traffic to potentially find interesting things in encrypted traffic. We looked at that 5-6 years ago. It's absolutely noisy and as heck, very false positive prone, and just couldn't be used to prevent. We started developing deep learning classifiers looking at encrypted traffic to be able to ascertain things. Then we started taking the deep learning models. We said, wow, this is really amazing what we've done with Cobalt Strike and other aspects of the deep learning. With PanOS 11 Nova, then we said, let's focus on known vulnerabilities. And could we prevent injection attacks? And one of the ones I'll show in the demo later, such as the Atlassian vulnerability, without having signatures. And so no matter how you change the signatures, this has a dramatic increase the amount of known vulnerabilities and unknown vulnerabilities we can prevent in the injection attack area. These two features are absolutely cutting edge and differentiated. And this is one of the things I'd love to see. So how many of you have done advanced threat prevention trials with your customers yet? Ooh. Okay. I've got a way to help that.
But we sell them a lot.
Yeah, exactly. I want you to, you're welcome to sell the subscription. I'd like to get the customers using it. That's what I care more. And there's, if you want to dig into more, like Cobalt Strike Mail-Able C2, exactly how we do it. Again, these protections are built by, backed up by Unit 42 research and data, and that's the team that I came from, in to make the product better. It's not just, oh yeah, we need this feature, let's just add this. Based on deep research, which is exactly how we came up with this. This is a cutting edge, absolutely differentiated capability. And I'm not naming competitors. You can go look those up yourself. These are other next generation firewall competitors. I have the same thing for SASE competitors. This is light years ahead of where our competitors are. This is differentiated enough. We're not talking about NSS labs where you're like 0.1, 0.2% different. This is to show orders of magnitude better and why it took a deep learning approach to be able to deliver this. And again, don't trust me or this third-party result. If you're doing a POC, recommend for the right customer, bring in a red team and do the detection, things like that with Cobalt Strike in place. And again, I'm not saying it's perfect, but it greatly raises the bar in what is commodity malware that includes Cobalt Strike that could be in customers' networks. Some other cool things, where we're looking, HTTP motet detection, we're looking at DGA for the generated URL, the position and length of the URI, position of the MIME boundary, position of characters, looking at the number of context fields and things like that. So this is kind of where we're using machine learning to be able to come up with different attributes and look at the data that's communicating to be able to say, now prevent the C2, which Emoted used. So I don't need signatures. And again, it says inline cloud analyze HTTP command control. Naming for these new inline signatures are not really useful. Here's another one, downloader infection over SSL. Again, not a single one of these is like, ooh, this is bad. It's using these combination in secure version of SSL, suspicious domain, SNI, self-signed certificate, long validity. It's things like that that we're putting it all together to go, okay, this is absolutely bad, prevent this. And so this is one of the things that inline cloud analyze SSL. So for the techies, you can go, there's additional blog posts on each one of these things. Zero-day exploit prevention. So this kind of gets into how we're using the exploit prevention for C2. I'll give you all the slides. You can go look at all these as you want kind of into this. But this is some really amazing stuff. So I'm excited. I mean, innovation, innovation, innovation. This is absolutely cutting edge stuff. And again, noisy, alerty, allow stuff that inundates the SOC isn't as helpful as it could be. All right. Can anyone tell me what kind of file type this is? Come on. Who's gonna? Leo. Oh, exactly. Good man. So this is actually a screensaver file. One of my favorite YouTube super techie guys was compromised. His YouTube account was taken over because this was a screensaver. And I'm like, again, 2023 screensaver files, which are essentially PE files, should not be coming into an organization. So I think file types are another type of zero trust policy. So what do you need to do? So this is using the SASE Cloud Management Console, we built these policies to nicely be able to control file types, blocking all the risky file types. And so I like this, even encrypted RAR, encrypted zip files. Should encrypted zip files, encrypted RAR files be able to leave my data center? If I know certain adversaries love these file types, sounds like a nice control or signal that I should be able to use. So this is another capability. Make sure you're leveraging the file blocking capability. External dynamic lists. How many of you build and host external dynamic lists for your customers? Cool. Another partner opportunity. I think this is a great thing that, again, instead of just looking at threat intel, taking it and doing something with it and putting it all together. A number of different sources. Unit 42, I love the SANS Internet Storm Center Top 20, Spam Vault, MSSP, Recorded Future. There's a lot of great stuff out here, but do something with it. By the way, there's a number of different EDLs that come with your threat prevention subscription. I'll take this one here. Tor. Where's mine? Should Tor be allowed in my enterprise network? That's a policy decision, but probably not. I've got high-risk IPs, known malicious IPs. Do I want to allow traffic coming in or out of my network for known and malicious IPs? The SANS Internet Storm Center gives you a top 20 IP ranges that shouldn't allow traffic in or shouldn't allow traffic out. So again, attack surface reduction. This is huge. Forget kind of modern edge cutting prevention stuff. And just blocking an IP can be a huge thing. Cool. And again, vulnerable IoT devices. We did a POC with a new hospital that opened up last fall. Every single one of the security cameras in this brand new hospital was both end of support and end of life and the most vulnerable device. The second most vulnerable devices were the printers, and the third most were the fire alarm control panel connected to the IT network instead of the OT network. So having visibility control and protection for IoT devices. And again, rather than buying yet another product, another solution, another sensor, another logging console, with Palo Alto Networks, you can just turn it on and simply enable this within your environment. So it comes into nice, simple zero trust rules, right? I have my policy for users, my policy for devices. I have my policy for applications. Everything else is explicit deny. And I have my continuous security inspection on top of that. And again, getting customers leveraging Policy Optimizer is essential to be able to reduce the attack surface. So kind of summary, no magical technology, but it's using all these together. And I'm going to go through a little bit more. So let me pause right there. Is anyone not convinced that every customer should have advanced threat prevention? Is anyone worried that some of their customers could have Cobalt Strike in their network? Have I successfully demonstrated the very much difference of why every customer should have advanced threat prevention? Good. So rather than talk about advanced threat prevention, I thought I'd kind of back into it like this. All right, how are we doing? Cool. 10 more minutes, take a break? Oh, cool, good. So let's talk about phishing, because again, so we talked about vulnerabilities. Let's talk about phishing, because this is often the front door to customers' networks. And again, it can start with something like a Microsoft Office document, or maybe a link to download the malware. User clicks on the link, tons of different malicious URLs. Executable comes in, it exploits, moves laterally, and then it's game over again. The lures keep getting better and better every single day. And this is an older one with enabling the macros. Would Bob in accounts payable like to pay the invoice? Yes, I'd like to pay the invoice. I need to enable the macros to pay the invoice. Bob clicked on the macro, enabled the macro. Yes. Oh, but your companies don't use macros. You have a GPO that turns them off inside your organization. Adversary said, great, we're going to use LNK files in emails, maybe a zip inside the LNK, an LNK file inside the zip, attached as an attachment. LNK file goes out to the internet, grabs a piece of malware, brings it down, and then it's game over again. It's a cat and mouse game that continues to occur. Maybe it's an HTML file included in the email, and the HTML file puts together, uses JavaScript and grabs a file. So it's all these one things over and over and over. Relying on email security alone isn't enough in today's threat landscape. And this is exactly kind of where we get into the protection, especially when the adversaries start looking at cloaking the phishing attack that's delivered. And so the security vendor, when they go out and scan, receives benign content, but the user gets the phishing attack. These are some of the examples that I receive in my Office 365 every single day. It's like, okay, would you like to fill in the CAPTCHA? Great, do that. The phishing attack's delivered. So this is one example of having modern web-based protection is absolutely essential. So let's get into the prevention aspects. Because guess what? I think we've got some pretty good solutions here. The key part is if you break down the attack lifecycle, right? The zip inside the LNK file inside the zip, there's, again, no one magical capability. It's using the full network security platform to have multiple attempts to be able to stop this. So the firewall decodes, automatically decodes the LNK file. If I was blocking LNK files, I could have prevented that right here. From here, phishing campaign, using the firewall, using advanced wildfire, using file blocking to prevent the executable, advanced wildfire DNS security. I already talked about Cobalt Strike, SSL download, and exfil. I think one of the key things for preventing known command and control, we know 85% of malware uses DNS for that initial outbound connection. And we focused on doing it really, really well. You're going to come over for a cameo? Leo, come over here. You can get in here too. But I think being able to stop it at that initial connection out is absolutely essential. And these are just some of the last quarter attacks, 5.7 billion attacks we blocked with DNS security, 55 million DNS tunnels, domain generation algorithms. By the way, DNS over HTTPS, this is an entire additional conversation that we should have at a later date. But again, being able to make sure your customers still have visibility inside here. Now with PanOS 11, we make it so much easier to go do. But again, I love each one of these capabilities is backed by Unit 42 threat research and additional innovations that are coming up. The stars are really industries first. And I think if we look at, we introduced this in PanOS 8.1, 8. Did we release it in PanOS 8.1 or 9? I can't remember. Anyway, it just keeps getting better and better and better. Short answer, there is no advanced DNS security coming at the moment. So the plan is this was already cutting edge DNS. This is absolutely, to me, the easiest subscription to both upsell and showcase the value to your customers. There's so much new innovation and prevention. I don't care what security solution your customer has, put this behind it and showcase the value. So if I take a look at, essentially, this used to be domain generation algorithm using Emotet and DNS techniques. Now adversaries are using, other things that make it a whole lot harder to be able to detect C2. And again, doing it inline, doing it real time is absolutely essential, right? What's my favorite word? Prevention, 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 and doing this with high fidelity. So ultra slow DNS tunneling techniques. This is pretty darn cool where, once every 5 minutes, adversaries are dripping things out of your environment, either, adding some additional data on top of that. And again, you can't do a SOC analyst sitting there. Any one of those, where's my, that's not bad. That's not something they're going to go, oh, there's a leak coming out of there. It's like Being able to detect this takes machines and takes deep learning to be able to find, to say, you know, here's exactly what's going on. So I like just some key differentiators. You know, this capability, again, is so differentiated that's up there that this is why I'm so optimistic in the capabilities we delivered. You know, limited visibility, basic coverage misses, relies on signatures, patterns, or old school databases. They may, quote unquote, have DNS security or have this. And I think one thing is, I just want to make clear, our DNS security, we are not a security resolver. Use your existing DNS resolver, whatever you have. And the nice thing is, it'll actually give you visibility to every DNS resolver your customer is using, so you can see sanctioned versus unsanctioned DNS resolvers. So nice competitive data, again, just to showcase the difference that's in there. And this is really kind of, we've given you some pretty differentiated capabilities on top of the innovation that's behind that. So let's say you got through DNS security. This is where you then need advanced URL filtering to do the real-time analysis of the URI and the phishing attack or the web attack presented to the user. And this is, again, where we're using deep learning, blah, 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 deobfuscation, static and dynamic analysis, essentially the real-time machine learning, looking at the URIs, putting it together. The number one reason I like this is not only the categories of the URL filtering brings, and I'm going to show you that in a second, but the phishing prevention. Having real-time aspects, right? Your customers have email security today, tick box, phishing prevention. This right here should be the additional layer every single customer has, regardless of what capabilities you're using. And you should be able to demonstrate this. These, to me, these are all the categories, what I'd call high risk. Should my customers connect to newly registered domains? Should my customers connect to questionable, insufficient content? Park domains. You know, the joke I have is, you know, your parents told you bad things happen after midnight. You really shouldn't be out after midnight. Well, bad things also happen with park domains. Your users shouldn't be visiting park domains. We've got some interesting blog posts that are in there. Advanced URL filtering. I've seen customers that have bought advanced URL filtering and then don't have it enabled. So having enable cloud inline categorization and detection prevention is absolutely essential to get the real-time benefits. I'm going to show you also how you see the result in here. This is why I hate the best practice assessment, because users would run this once a year and they go, oh, URL filtering is not up to par, and I'm allowing, oh my God, by the way, the default URL filtering profile, you can stop the recording for a second. The default URL filtering profile should never be allowed, because allow should not be allowed anywhere ever. It's the worst policy ever, sorry. Alert on every single thing and block as many of these as possible, or a continue page. These are really capable. And again, this really with AI ops, let's see real time exactly how I'm making a change in my policy to start changing each one of these. And I like, all of a sudden, how much traffic do I have going to newly registered domains? Am I going to, the number one thing that I hear from partners and customers, if I change that, I'm going to get fired. Like, am I going to infect one user, 100 million users, things like that? You're going to get real-time feedback into exactly the policy and changes that I'm actually making. But our phishing projection even got better. So we introduced this with Prisma Access. It's now come to next generation firewall. We said, let's go train our deep learning, machine learning models on SaaS hosted phishing prevention, man-in-the-middle phishing prevention. And again, focus on phishing kits, right? You can go to the underground and go, hey, I want to have Leo's phishing kit simulation that's out there. And so we said, let's actually go train our models on specific phishing kits that you can buy that's out there to, again, raise the bar in this protection. So we keep making it better and better and better and training these models. So if I kind of summarize, right? If I down here, DNS security and actually Wildfire block things all the way here. Advanced URL filtering to block known phishing attacks. Inline deep learning, new and evasive phishing attacks with advanced URL filtering. And you guys showed earlier, right? AI Ops shows even if Leo enters his credentials, I can prevent him from posting his credentials outside the organization. And again, there's no one else in the industry that has anything like this. This is cutting edge. So here's some actual policies: DNS security, phishing domain set up for a sinkhole. I have my my advanced URL filtering policy, my advanced threat prevention. We actually have known phishing kit prevention that's in here in the anti-spyware rule that's in here, a bunch of different phishing kits that are in there. From there, prevention of credentials. So I go in here, set this up, and again, pretty differentiated feature. Cool. So again, no magical technology. It's putting it all together. Let me finish up here and then we'll take a break. Sound good? Perfect. So first up, any questions? Were there any questions on phishing prevention, advanced URL filtering that I covered there? Everyone's speechless. Wow. Cool. So let's talk about MSRDP, because I think this is an interesting one. Is right, there's so many things that with MSRDP, it's like, oh yeah, we use a vulnerability scanner to go see it. But again, developers and users are really creative. Oh, I just need access to that workload. Can anyone tell me what port MSRDP runs on? Exactly. What port can it run on? Any port. Exactly. I love this. Hey, I found an open port. I'm going to start using MSRDP on those. And so it enables you to get your job done. And who finds MSRDP? The adversaries that are out there. And this is exactly what's happening. Mergers and acquisitions. You know, you acquire a company, maybe developers beta testing some new tool they've released, you know, introducing something in the DMZ, things like that. So to me, this is yet another front door where the adversaries are sitting there knocking on all the doors that are out there. Who's doing it? Well, there's paid services. I can just buy MSRDP access straight to one of your workloads. And so on the underground, they are continually testing and doing brute force attacks. So one of the things I start saying is, why let the adversary continue knocking on all your doors? Make sure we secure this as well. So this is one of the, to me, the easiest and biggest ones. And it's really relatively simple to go do, but it needs you to help. So protection-wise, first, MSRDP exposed directly to the internet. Please stop. It doesn't need to go directly on the internet. Put it behind a VPN or SASE solution, right? Only authenticated users putting it all together. And then again, in case things are put together. But again, I can't have, you know, perfect things. So starting to secure it on top of this, one of the things that threat prevention includes is brute force MSRDP signatures. This is one of the things I added here. Instead of block, add it, and I can, instead of just reset, I can block the IP for a number of times. So someone's doing a brute force attack from XYZ IP. I can actually put that IP on a block list automatically to protect the rest of my estate. I can take it a step further and do something a little more with it. And again, I've got other MSRDP signatures as well. This is pretty foul. I could actually use XOR to add it to an external dynamic list. This is kind of cool. It's like, and again, do I want to keep it there forever? Maybe I do an automatic EDL to add it for, you know, a week or so and take it off, things like that. The other thing is identify all the applications. And again, this starts back to app ID. So we're taking a look and really understanding, you know, all the different apps that are in here. So using app ID, I can say, I can tell you if MSRDP is running on a non-standard port right now. You can look in the ACC, and one of the second tab of the ACT is the threat tab, and at the bottom, apps running on non-standard ports. But I can actually say, start here, and then have visibility into all apps. But I can create my application-based policy so that MSRDP, if it's allowed, is only on the standard default ports. And by the way, only these sets of users can do, and I'll implicit deny everything else. All right, last couple things. Again, what do you do with those logs? I've got triggers going off all over the place. So, all right, I've got Cobalt Strike. What am I going to do with that? I can actually do an HTTP log action. I can kick off XOR. I can do a change to my NSX policy. I can kick off the ServiceNow ticket. But, you know, this is the key. Finding a policy for these C2 events, I can add them, automatically tag them into a dynamic address group. So add it to a dynamic address group. That way I can introduce multi-factor authentication anytime a user does something, and all of a sudden, you know, increase the security posture. I can kick off the ServiceNow ticket to go investigate potentially compromised user. This can be automatic. I always have a compromised host user dynamic address group that I want to do something with. So that way we've kind of taken advantage of that. I can also grab third-party details and again, kick off the XOR ransomware playbook and grab all the right data. And I've got everything right there at my fingertips. So, and the last thing, again, best practice, use AIOps, and then we'll talk about the SLR in a little bit. So, summary, leverage every one of these capabilities. If you have a customer with only our firewalls and threat prevention, and maybe one other subscription, that customer is not as well protected as they should be. If your customer has other competitive solutions, that customer may or may not be as protected as they could be. So the network security platform, and I love the tie-in to Cortex enhanced application logs and Cortex XDR for modern EDR capability. And if you do all this, you get all the top 10 prevention capabilities. I'll leave this to you. I'll leave this up here for a second. And there's a lot of capabilities to address the top 10 that we came up with. How's that speed dating with ransomware? Definitely the evolution of ransomware, but that's the thing. I think we've got to, with the Palo Alto Networks network security platform, SASE platform, cloud delivered security service, together with XDR, XOR, really powerful solution.
John, thank you very much
for
the introduction in these topics. It's very impressive what is always going on every single day, and the development of the solutions we can offer to our customers. Let's take a breath of fresh air, maybe coffee, water, and we will join together in 50 minutes at 11. Thank you very much.
Perfect, thank you.
See you
and
soon.
If there's any questions, keep putting them in there, and I'm glad to answer them when we come back from the break.
Okay, we are ready to restart. I hope everyone has had the possibility to enjoy a coffee and a short break. We go ahead again with John Harrison for the next topic, and later on with some news from our side. Thank you very much, John. Stage is yours.
Great. Glad to be back. So hopefully the ransomware overview was a really great session to help you understand a little bit more about what the adversaries are doing, but better yet, how to protect your customers. I want to shift gears a little bit because I talked about a lot of capabilities, and all of a sudden, if you start adding up the next-gen firewall together with advanced URL filtering, advanced wildfire, advanced threat prevention, DNS security, IoT security, SaaS inline security, AI ops. The customer's going, oh, wow, hey, this is really great, but that's kind of expensive. So what I want to do is walk you through the security lifecycle review, talk about how to generate one, delivery tips. So real quick, how many of you are running a security lifecycle review regularly? Okay, how many are you using it to drive net new logos? Okay, to me, this is one of the tools to be able to use using your customer's network traffic to showcase the capabilities of the network security platform that I just talked about. So how do we do this? Right? It's a pretty comprehensive platform. And there's so many things in there, right? We've got SASE, we've got hardware firewalls, each and every one of these capabilities. I was going to do an animation that showed, you know, line item, line item, line item, line item, and all of a sudden big dollars kind of pop up, right? That's kind of, it does appear on paper to be really expensive. And this is where the security lifecycle review can absolutely accelerate and drive new and existing opportunities. And I love this because 80% of the time you run an SLR on a solution, on a competitor's situation, you will win the deal. And not only you'll win it, but the data shows 3 times the lifetime value and double the ASP. So this is why, you know, I've seen it over and over and over, and it works. So we talked about AI ops, and the number one question I get is, why would I do an SLR? I've done a best practice assessment, and I love the BPA, and I love AI ops. The BPA and AI ops, if you look at those control panels, all it says is, did I properly plug it in and configure it correctly? It does not show you, you have 20,000 malicious DNS queries leaving the network. Do I have 5,000 phishing domains I could have prevented? Do I have Zippy share leaving my network? Do I have MSRDP, gigs and gigs of traffic at MSRDP? Do I have Cobalt Strike leaving my network? You can go in and show advanced threat prevention, show them some data sheets and go, yeah, now go buy this. Why not use the customer's traffic and network to be able to showcase? And that's what the security lifecycle review does. So it gives you visibility into all applications, all threats, all risks in the environment. And so if I take a look at this, I love it because it is that back to basics way. We've had this for years. So to do it is actually drop dead simple. The why you should do it is what I want to talk to you about, and then how you can make it your own. Because I just presented to a CISO of a Fortune 500 customer last week. He was like, wow, I had no idea this was on my network. We didn't know. And that accelerated the opportunities. It gives you a nice, beautiful report. I love Panorama. I love PanOS. Reporting capabilities are not as optimum as they should be. So this is where having a nice report for an existing customer and net new customers. So how do you do it? You put in a next generation firewall or VM series or SASE solution, let it sit there for 7 to 30 days, span or tap port, and then you go back and present the results to your customers. You do not email the PDF and say, here's the results. You don't let your customers run these on their own and say, when they start asking questions, this is your value add in interpreting the tea leaves back to the customer. I love this because it helps drive the core security bundle, which I'll talk about, enterprise license agreement, all these capabilities, service opportunities, right? Do you want to get to layer 7 visibility with App ID? We can help you with that. Do you want to do SSL TLS decryption? We can help you with that. Do you want to do, refresh your hardware? Or maybe you should have VM series or CN series within your data center transformation. And I think this is one of the things that this is a service opportunity for you. So when do you run it? Any net new logo that's out there. Put it right behind any competitive solution. Checkpoint, Fortinet, Cisco, Meraki, an old school VPN. You have your customers using VPNs, see what's coming in or out of their network traffic. You have an existing customer that, right, only has one subscription, or maybe even has newer hardware, but they only have one subscription. Each one of these is an opportunity. So, but I want to talk about using it to drive net new logos. So we're going to focus on this. And we've also got a huge incentive here for the rest of Q4 we'll talk about. One of the things I have, again, every single time I run an SLR, and I've worked with partners and SEs and sales folks to run an SLR, the customer's mouth usually is wide open and says, I had no idea this was in my network. I did not know this was going on. Oh, can you help us with this? And this is a great example with Registers of Scotland that both accelerated the opportunity and helped them to expand it with the full CDSS platform. Over and over, education, retail, finance, banking, you name it. This is a really, really helpful thing. So if I convince you yet, okay, I know. So let's get into the why and how. So again, you've got the full capabilities of the platform, and these are the 4 core security services I think every single customer should have. SaaS inline security, I think also IoT security. I think of those as the next goals, unless IoT security is kind of the door in. So let's get in there. What firewall should I use? I think BOLL Engineering has a lot of firewalls. Maybe you should use those. Could you use the existing firewall? Yes, you can. So here's what the SLR doesn't do. If the firewall is, say, running PAN-OS 9.1 and only threat prevention, and the policy is not set up, nothing's going to show up in the SLR. I always recommend bring in a brand new firewall. Let's say firewall running PAN-OS 11 Nova. Turn every single thing on. Put it on a spanner tap port. I don't know too many customers, the larger customers, that are going to say, let's deploy PAN-OS 11 in production. But if you put it on a spanner tap port, you're going to be able to showcase all those capabilities that I showed that may accelerate moving to PAN-OS 11 or 10.2, things like that. So Palo Alto Networks NFR pool, you can, different things there. Your channel SE can help you also with our eval hardware. One of the things we've also done is it's how you configure the firewall over and over and over. The number one thing I've found where SLRs don't work in evals hasn't been set up optimally to alert on everything. So we'll talk about that. So make sure the firewall is fully licensed. Advanced threat prevention, advanced wildfire, advanced URL filtering, DNS security. Great, you've licensed it. Now we've got to configure it. Need, and this is where IoT and data lake, the data lake set up for SaaS inline security and IoT security can be a little cumbersome. That's kind of where sometimes I'll start with the 4 core security services rather than setting up IoT. It's up to you. Everything should be logged. You want an alert policy on every single thing that's out there. And I'm going to go into the configurations of each of the subscriptions because this is one of the things. Management interface connectivity, and leave it in at least 7 to 8 days. And again, do you have a policy to wipe the data after the fact, right? No one wants their data, right? Data privacy, things like that. We want to make sure you do this. So at a minimum, this is where I say enable advanced threat prevent, the 4 core security services. It starts with a stats dump file. You can also do this within the App Hub, but there's other things. I love the SaaS usage report, generate a botnet report. Sometimes there's interesting things on there. The ACC top apps on non-standard ports. I don't have the screenshot in there, right? I talked about MSRDP on port 5000. Every other app running on non-standard ports should be part of your delivery that's in there. That's not in the ACC, and that's one of the things I'm one. If it isn't in the logs, it doesn't show up in the SLR. I hear sometimes customers go, okay, how come I don't see any DNS security events? Did you have DNS security enabled? Did you have DNS security enabled on all things, right? And the same for advanced URL filtering. That default crappy policy I talked about has allow on many rules. And so if you don't have alert on all those rules, it's not going to show up. The other thing it doesn't do, and this is where roadmap-wise, why I love AI Ops for an existing customer. Existing customers want to know, how many did I alert on versus how many did I block, or God help us, how many did I allow? So this is kind of where AI Ops can be better for an existing customer, but still the SLR shows different things and we're not quite there for all customers. Advanced POC SLR, EDLs, right? You can enable the EDLs. They don't show up in the SLR. The DLP, SaaS inline security, IoT security. And again, there's other things that are out there. Enable XDR, show XDR together, the benefit of XDR together with the network security platform, show them troubleshooting and enhanced application logs and putting it all together. So the tap port configuration, you can do vWire. I don't usually go unplug the customer's network and plug in the customer's firewall. I'm going to let you choose that, but I've seen some, you have a like lawyer's office or something, you're like, oh, let's just put this in there, make sure it's log and not alert, not block, so you're not impacting network traffic. I hear sometimes partners say, we ran the SLR, we ran it out of our account, or we ran it under the customer's account. So for tracking of the opportunities and the business value, using the partner relationship manager and doing it on an opportunity is probably one of the biggest ways you'll get visibility into this incentive that I'm talking about. So you can do it in the CSP, you can do it in the App Hub, you can even do it via Panhandler. I'm not sure if this still works, but I recommend looking at the partner relationship manager. That way we can kind of track the opportunity and the impact, and also tie the partner salesperson and partner SE for the particular opportunity, right? Everyone in the room should know how to do this, right? You've got a stats dump file, right? Not the tech support file. You're going to generate the stats dump file. You're going to, I love this, request a deal registration extension. It's under that menu, but unfortunately, then you're going to create the SLR report and put your details here, which industry. Sometimes we overwrite the industry and it comes straight from SFDC. And that way, if you run it under your account, then it's not, and you've got a manufacturing customer, may not have the right information. Upload the file. Errors and no SLR reports generated. I hear sometimes, oh, we ran the SLR, there's no data in there. The first thing I want you to do, take a look inside the stats dump file, see if there's any data in there that's in there. Sometimes I'll see there was a bug in older versions of Panorama and there wasn't actual valid data in there. If your stats dump file is only 5 KB, probably not any data in there. Take a look in there, see what's in there. And I've got some other troubleshooting tips that's in there. So generate your SLR report, tie it together. Nice, you're up and going. You can do this in the customer support portal as well, putting it there, but then you don't have quite as much visibility. When you create the report, there's a lot of customization. And I like this because you can decide which sections you want to include. And this is where your first time you generate it, go ahead and include all this. But if there's other things that aren't interesting, you might leave it out. Kind of up to you. Application categories, you can specify this, right? You know, and this is one thing, photo and video. Is there interesting data in here or not? Usually it's not the most interesting category of apps. And I'll kind of focus, and I'm going to show you which ones to look at. When you're going up with URL filtering, I'm going to show you some other areas of customization, because the high-risk domains, I recommend including many more high-risk categories in the URL filtering, because that starts some really interesting conversations. You can change this here and say, generated from my partner customer, and put in additional things in here. So this is your edit field as you're generating this. This is where you're in the app hub. One of the things we can't do right now is say, do it off this CDL, but not this CDL. And that's a feature that's coming a little bit further. Okay. So what's in the SLR? You know, pretty much it's, you know, this is your standard summary report that's up there. This is an older version. You get kind of nice summary view, things that are in there. It's customizable. You can customize the logo and information in here. You can edit this as well. All right, I talked about port-based rules. Definitely, there's no way to secure that. So this is an interesting thing. One of the tools that developers love using, we were actually doing an IR investigation during a security breach. We found a lot of ngrok traffic. We're like, what the heck is ngrok? Public URLs for exposing your local web server. Spend more time programming one command line for a secure URL to bypass your NAT or firewall. Basically, this is what the DevOps guys do to get around you. What do the adversaries do? And they said, hey, we're going to start using this also. And so there's different versions that are out there. So App ID and layer 7 visibility can be really interesting. Sometimes it can have a lot of stuff that you're going, okay, not really interesting. I love these categories. File sharing apps, remote access, SMB, FTP, encrypted tunnels. This is where I always start in taking a look. You know, high risk applications, this is kind of interesting. The amount of bandwidth, but these two, file sharing and encrypted tunnel. You'll see up here, I have 48 file sharing applications. Does that sound like a zero trust policy? Is every one of those really a sanctioned file sharing application inside your environment, right? I talked about lateral movement, exfil earlier. File sharing, start here. Encrypted tunnel. Oh, I've got 21 terabytes worth of SSL TLS traffic. Is that an interesting data point? Yes, that is, because we can help give you visibility into that traffic. So I love digging into this. This isn't a magical document. This is a storytelling document to help you bring solutions back to the customer and partner with your value add on top of that, not bringing them more headaches and things like that. Okay, SaaS applications. I'm going to talk about this in just a sec. Remote access applications. Remember my talk about MSRDP? You have 8 gigs of MSRDP traffic in your network. Is this sanctioned, unsanctioned, or traffic that should be denied? We can help you with controlling, safely enable controlling each one of these. This is interesting every single time I run an SLR. The one I did with the CISO last Friday night proved really, really interesting. They had no idea they had that much traffic that's in there. Sometimes it may not be anything interesting. Maybe you didn't deploy the firewall in an interesting part of the network. This is where deployment gets to really is absolutely crucial. If it isn't, then skip that and say, okay, we've looked at this. This is a good sign. Let's take a look at other parts of your network. So I talked about SaaS applications. Well, one of the key things is the SLR today only includes the basic 700-800 SaaS security applications, what I call it basic app ID. To really give you visibility and control, why not give them a SaaS inline security trial? There's a free 90-day trial, and run the, what is it called? The SaaS, what do you call it? SaaS risk report? Yeah, SaaS inline security report. And this is one of the things, you're going to get visibility into all 60,000 SaaS applications. At Ignite on tour in London, we were trying, the customer was on stage. They found out they had 5,000 SaaS applications within their network. Again, definitely not zero trust. And this is one of the things that, again, we were able to help when not only visibility, I love this. We can give you visibility and everything. Visibility is a pain in the butt because now you've given the customer 5,000 more things to do. We can help you to safely enable and control these in your environment. I talked about advanced threat prevention. This is an amazing capability to be able to showcase advanced threat prevention, because in your SLR, you're going to have visibility into all the evasive connection. I know this is a bad, not the best naming in here, but known C2, and this is evasive C2. So basically, Cobalt Strike and anything else shows up right there. And for the new PanOS 11 Nova, you're going to see also unknown vulnerability connection. I need to update this slide as well. So again, graphically, you've showed, do I see any benefit right now of advanced threat prevention? Oh, cool. Let's take a look in here, because we can go in a little bit further and we can actually see all the different C2 in your environment. And then I can actually show you the evasive command control. So anything in here is the advanced threat prevention. If you don't see this section in the SLR, oh, we ran the SLR, and if the customer runs it on their own, but there's no evasive, that's either good, we don't see any, or you may not have the advanced threat prevention subscription. And again, we've got a lot of known C2 for crypto miners that are out there. We find crypto mining in resources all the time. Again, malware gets in, adversaries start using it, and there is signature-based Cobalt Strike detection as well. So we have signatures just like any other IPS that are out there. This is where it kind of gets interesting, and where I see things go wrong is, we've got advanced threat prevention. Did you configure it correctly? So setting up inline, this is in the anti-spyware policy, or the spyware policy, inline cloud analysis, and enable inline cloud analysis. It's a little bit more complicated, but again, you got to go into this. Similar thing for the vulnerability protection profile. Go into that, enable inline cloud analysis. So it essentially says we've kicked in the Mica engine. We're sending some of the initial parts of the header to do the analysis for this. And there's the 5 different detectors that are in here. We're adding more and more and making advanced threat prevention even better. Stay tuned for more stuff. All right, threat prevention and wildfire. So, right, wildfire using machine learning to prevent unknown files on the web, on the wire. But again, you can show the customer marketing slides, but better yet, let's use the SLR to do it. This was actually a customer that I'm not sure if I see the value of wildfire. And I'm like, huh, you've got malware grabbing with Mimicaps grabbing credentials and Cobalt Strike beaconing out of your network. And this is where AI Ops helps to visualize this as well. But the SLR, when wildfire is working properly, helps showcase this. So in the threats section, this highlights threat prevention and wildfire together. So first is the vulnerability exploits, the malware detection. This is unknown and known. So this is unknown is wildfire, known is threat prevention, and then the command and control. I like tying this back to, again, the known vulnerability protection and being able to detect that. It can also include some of the malware family tags for malware family we've seen, and then the DNS systems that are out there. It's a good reminder to say what threat prevention includes. Threat prevention includes vulnerability protection, brute force, known malware, known C2, the file identification, and malicious IPs. Malicious IPs are not included in the SLR, but it'd be a great report to say, here's all your EDLs you've set up for known malware connections. So ensure everything is configured to alert all. A lot of things that are in here, the vulnerability exploits, I'm not going to go through this, but again, you'll see the severity of the different vulnerabilities. You'll see the known and unknown malware, C2, and things like that. With the vulnerability protection, again, the policy setup, if the policy is not set to alert for the rule, it won't show up. And this is where I recommend turn on even informational, because it can be used for signal by the SOC team for additional incident response. All right, DNS security, right? I talked about, again, marketing slide with a lot of stats on there, but this is absolutely fantastic for showing customers, because the visualization, again, is really, really well for a new prospective customer. So again, you get a nice summary view, and then we'll go into the details. So you get all the different aspects of what's analyzed. And again, malware families, DNS requests, how many different countries, things like that. I'll include all the details so you can go through later. I don't want to do this, but some of the things I love starting with is, here's all your high level DNS traffic. Nothing magical about this. Malicious DNS traffic, and then high risk DNS traffic. Similar to the URL filtering, the risky URL filtering categories, this includes some really interesting conversations, especially for when you're making, if you're running this regularly, if you're making policies and you're not seeing this decrease over time, that can be a challenge. And each one of these things, right, within the malicious traffic, DNS tunneling, domain generations, 30% of these are phishing attacks. So this would be known phishing attacks that could have been prevented communicating out with the DNS security subscription. So again, regardless of what security solution your customer has in place, and then high risk, proxy avoidance, parked, newly registered domains, dynamic DNS. I focus on these for some really interesting conversations. Top malicious domains by traffic and high risk domains, and then the number of DNS resolvers that we saw in your environment. So again, if there's only one or two, that's great, but do you want to allow all these different DNS resolvers or not? Sometimes your customer may not be aware of that. And then we can even show you kind of traffic map, kind of showing you exactly where the traffic's going. Different malware families, indicators, compromise. And for the SLR, I recommend setting up sinkhole. Again, another thing that I see going wrong with AI ops and the BPA, the setting up DNS sinkhole is drop dead simple, and making sure you have alert on each one of them. Let's go into URL filtering, right? We've got a lot of phishing protection in there, but this is, if you run an SLR and there's nothing in the bottom half of the SLR, that means advanced URL filtering was not set up correctly or is not enabled as a subscription. So I did this, a recent SLR I looked at, customer paid for advanced URL filtering. There's nothing in here, meaning there's no URLs that were analyzed in real time. So first kind of thing. I love, so this is interesting thing up here. This is customizable. So these are the top 5 or 6 high risk categories. This for advanced URL filtering, I start right here. Insufficient content, unknown. You can add up to 10 categories that are in there. You could add ransomware, you could add additional things. So you can customize that one to make it look, to really have the conversation you want. Generally, nothing's exciting there. But here, again, similar to DNS security, malware, phishing, C2, grayware. We have the new ransomware category that's tied into phishing, but then real-time URLs that are analyzed. So that shows a lot of benefit there. Top visited malicious domains. And let's see if I have this in there. We added another page that shows here are all the serial numbers of the firewalls that have all the malicious domains. So that way you can give the customer some actions where you actually get in there. So nice summary page. We've updated the summary page as well. And I'm going to skip through this, a lot of details here. And then, right, this is the configuration. So skip through this. Just if you want to talk track for each one of these capabilities, there's a lot of great stuff. Oh, and this is a great example. Now we have malicious URLs per device serial number and malicious URLs per detected in real time. So you can actually take a look and see, because again, the SLR shows you a lot of information. Great. Is this the tool to, oh, I want to dig down and see which user that was? It's stuff coming right out of your threat logs, and that's a great use case. Let me show you AI ops where you can operationalize, you can go into that and have a further on conversation. All right, IoT security. You're going to go through the trouble of doing a POC, enable IoT security, right? We talked about vulnerable IoT devices. Well, the SLR works with IoT security as well. So you get a nice summary report. Again, you have to have it activated. One caveat is the IoT with DRDL is not currently working. You need the CDL version that's at that. That's a feature request. But you get a lot of, you pretty much get all the details that you would get in an IoT security summary. So it's nice to include as part of the report, the vulnerable devices and kind of things like that in a nice summary report. So again, no one magical thing. All right, I talked about file blocking. And so I decide whether you want to show this to the customer or not. It shows here are all the files coming in or out of the network, but you can at least have the conversation to say, you know, were they aware of these file types? So decide whether you want to include this or not. And, you know, 4 million files, leaving it over 71 different applications. Gets into visibility, control, and whether you want to allow that. So nice summary report. So we said we wanted to, we had the incentive that was out there. Partner SEs could make $250 running an SLR on a net new logo. So Q4 is here right now. We said we want to go big. So we have upped the SLR incentive for the rest of Q4, which is not much. But again, I had one of my CBMs work with his partners who did 70 or 80 SLRs during the Q4 period before. So introducing accelerate, right? Accelerate, yeah, partner incentive. So this is a tweak on the existing SLR. So basically, the larger the opportunity, the larger the payout. We know to walk into a large customer that maybe have some other competitors' firewalls, probably a little harder to do and a little more work to go do. And we said we want to make the payout bigger. So we said, you got $1 million opportunity. The partner SE just for running the SLR can make $250 for running the SLR. That's all you got to do. Needs a net new logo opportunity, needs the opportunity in Salesforce. Again, whether you're allowed with your company to receive the incentive, that's between you and your company. I know some companies don't allow that. But we said we wanted to make it even bigger. Is my mic dead? Oh, for you. So turn on all the subscriptions, turn on AI ops, turn on SaaS inline security, turn on IoT. On top of that, and run an SLR, add an extra $1,000. So this is for our Q4, expires end of July. There's not much time, but BOLL Engineering has a bunch of firewalls. They're ready to help you. So we're hoping this could be an interesting incentive to get you to run an SLR. Does this sound interesting? So a lot of terms and conditions, I'll include that in the deal. You also get an extra experience point, so you get 2 XPs for running the SLR. Last thing I want to close on, just the roadmap and update. We've been adding a ton of new features. I think that's one of the key things. So one, we've added a bunch of back-end performance updates and trouble things. Too many people were running SLRs, so we were having timeouts and, oh, I ran the SLR, DNS security wasn't in there. Oh, ran this, the PDF wasn't generated. We had mail certificate issues. So we've been escalating things. We've got a lot of updates. Wildfire keeps working and not working. At the moment, it's not working, but they're supposedly resolving that again. IoT DRDL is coming. SaaS inline security is coming. Advanced threat prevention now works up to Panos 11 Nova. So that's all released. DNS security works actually to Panos 11 Nova. IoT, EMEA bug fixes, those are all done. Advanced URL filtering, localizations, all these are updated. There's more and more things that are coming. So if there's features that you think would be helpful, I get emails all the time going, hey, if we had this, this would be really helpful. I'm actually doing some updated videos, kind of helping you interpret the results and putting that together. Couple things. The gold configuration, I have a beta version of an updated gold configuration to help you jumpstart. So I'll share that with the team here and you guys can distribute that. That can shorten your period to all those individual configurations that I show that deploys it. And anytime you email SLR support, include the stats dump file and a little information. Don't just say I didn't get my SLR, include the details that are in there. Just some of the updates. I want to show you, yeah, I think I kind of mentioned this. So with App ID, I focus on remote access applications, file sharing, encrypted tunnel, SASE security, URL filtering that I noticed this customer, this prospective customer didn't have advanced URL filtering. And then different aspects, the DNS security will light up like a Christmas tree and look at DOH, again, provide solutions. So advanced threat prevention is not in this mock-up SLR. And again, command and control was actually fairly low, which is kind of concern. And then a high number of file types that are in there. And then IoT security was missing. So I'm gonna, so the main thing is use this for a conversation starter. And not only that, to really help customers then with solutions, right? I think this is one of the things. Oh, this is the ACC report, a lot of other details. So tons of information available. And again, work with customers on a roadmap. So that's all I wanted to share. So hopefully tomorrow, do you have any customers you think about running an SLR to showcase all the capabilities of the network security platform? Anyone have one, or your wheels turning? Sounds like a good idea. Cool. Well, I'll be here over lunch, or folks can ask questions on the thing, and then the team can get questions back to me. Cool, thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, John. Very impressive pictures, numbers. I hope we have enough boxes here to run all the SLR.
I know. That's
No, of course, we have some NFR boxes on stock here. So if you need a box to install at the customer side, please let us know. Ask in advance. If you need a box that we don't have, we can organize it with the Palo Eval stock. I would like to tell you some information about active promotions, incentives, about trainings, and other news. It's just a reminder. Yeah, no, sorry. Now we have the picture. Thank you very much. It's an ongoing promotion for partners to receive NFR boxes. And actually, these conditions are available until end of July. It's nothing new in detail. We have Discord Panorama for a customer who has not yet a Panorama. There is a promotion. If bought together with a PA400, there is a huge additional discount. So if the customer doesn't want the PA400, just sell him one PA410 with the CoreSec security bundle to the lowest price that is ever possible. And you get an additional 35% or 25% on the Panorama. So he gets for free a PA400 box and a very good price for the Panorama. This is still available also till end of July. Then the refresh promotion to refresh existing hardware that the customer has in use is also going until end of July. Add always subscriptions to it, and then you get the full discounts on this promotion. Maybe there is some small print in it. The migration date, for instance, has to be at least 90 days after the order date. Otherwise, there will not be a credit. And so, but be careful with the small print, or ask us, or we will ask you if you want an offering from us. Similar to this is a competitive takeout. If the customer has a competitive solution in use, we can use similar discounts and offer Palo Alto network solutions.
I think this is one where you can think about how are you going to do the competitive takeout, and
John has a remark to it.
So this is the competitive takeout together with the SLR. Think of, you're just going to show them an expensive bill of materials and some discounts, or say, let me show you the value in the Palo Alto Networks platform with the SLR and the competitive takeout together. So I think these two things kind of work hand in hand.
Thank you very much, John, for that. Then it's an ongoing promotion, just as a reminder, if you sell new VM or container solutions. And not the last one, please be aware that our trainings are booked very well in the last few months, but there are next training dates available. So the 210 beat for your employees, but also for your partners, for your end customers. Every solution that is used very well through trained people will make the world a little bit more secure. And for courses where we don't have a date fixed, please let us know, ask. We can organize the training on an individual basis with a partner together. Then that's pretty new. We are able now to have Palo Alto network products on stock. We have it already on stock. This is our stock, a part of it. So we can deliver almost the same day as you order with us. The process keeps the same as before. Make dealer registration, we make offerings to you, and when you order, then we can fulfill from stock. The subscriptions and support will ordered with Palo Alto Networks at the date when you order the box with us, the whole service with us. And the grace period starts then when the services are delivered. So it's not based on the date when the box arrived in our stock. So that could help to fulfill some new projects that were not possible in the past, of course. Especially if a customer has some weak solution that is not working very properly now. So yeah, you can migrate it maybe even tomorrow. So still a chance to ask questions. Is there any question we may ask? Be it online, be it here in the room.
No questions from the remote attendees yet.
So one thing with the SLR, if you're running an SLR and you're not quite sure how to interpret if you're running an SLR and need help interpreting the results, I'm glad to help out. Leo's good to help out. There's other folks that'll help you be more successful as well. So don't feel like, you've done this thing. We want to help you to be successful. So take one of your own firewalls inside your own office and play with it there, right? Don't just, hey, you've got a great opportunity here. It's like, take a look. I'll share the slides, the presentation, and think of how you can put some of these offers together that BOLL's talked about, and how you can leverage these to drive both existing customers to expand as well as the net new customers as well.
Thank you very much, Sean. Are there any other questions? So then it's just the time to say thank you very much for attending the event. Please let us know when we were missing something that you want to maybe have covered in the next session. The session was recorded, so the attendees can receive the recording. You will receive the presentations we have made. And again, thank you very much for the attendance and hope to see you soon. Please call us for any questions, offerings. We are here for you. And thank you very much, John, for being here, Leo, Michael, Rolf, who are all helping to our job here for you. In the slides, we have some more information. BOLL is growing. We have about something between 65 and 70 employees now. We are since 2 years in Germany, and since Christmas around, I have also an office in Austria. I would like to remind you our services, that some are well known to you, some not. Please contact us if you have any interesting things. Reminder what we cover in our portfolio. And we are here for security, to make the world more secure than the day before. Thank you very much. For any questions, reach out to us, and goodbye.